My wife, who is a very, very quiet-spoken person, she put a sticker on the top of my mirror in my bathroom where I shave every morning, and it would say, "You are now looking at the problem."
I simply define complicated as people who are hard to understand and hard to work with. Not because they're necessarily bad, but because they're human. Complexity is a part of every relationship. The moment that I can admit that I'm complicated, I always take a moment and say, hey, let me go first. Hi, my name is Ryan Leak, and I am complicated. Most conflict isn't about what actually happened. It's about the gap between what we expected and what we experienced.
Well, the top of the morning to you, and welcome to It's a Good Life. Boy, do I have a special guest and treat for you today. You guys know I've done seminars all over the world for the past 30 years, and I booked over 500 speakers. And the guy we have today is, everywhere I go, he's the hottest speaker on the circuit. But also, that's not enough for me. I know a ton of people who've built a relationship with this man, and he's the real deal off the stage, and that's what really attracts me. His name is Ryan Leak, and we're here today to talk about his fabulous book, How to Work with Complicated People. And I thought, well, this would be great for Ryan because he would being on with me is a great test case for how his book works and his new content. Now, for all of you who are signed up for the Peak Experience, I want you to know that Ryan is also going to be one of our guest speakers this year at the Ritz-Carlton in Kapalua. That's May 3rd through 6th. So, again, I always feel bad. There's so many people want to go to that event. Always make sure you're on the waiting list, okay? It's been sold out since 2003. Get on the waiting list. Things come up in people's lives, you know, babies being born and things happen in life. And there's always a few cancellations. And so if you get on the waiting list, we definitely love to see you. It's the highlight of my year every year. It's the best audience I've ever seen. And every time a speaker comes, they go, that was the best audience I ever saw. So with all that said, Mr. Ryan Leak, it is such an honor to have you here today. You are absolutely killing it, my man. Welcome to the program.
Brian, thank you so much for having me, man. It is an honor to be on your podcast, and I'm really looking forward to being with you in Hawaii with my whole family. So
bringing the fam. That's how we sold it. Bring the fam. They got water slides.
Yeah, I love it. They're going to have a blast.
That's great. And where are you living at right now?
I live in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Big D. Well, yeah. I'm very familiar. My son played football at SMU, so I was there.
Let's go.
Every other weekend in the fall for 4 years.
That's great. I love it.
But so I love Big D. Let's just kind of dive in. How to Work with Complicated People. Fantastic title in its simplicity. Tremendously profound in its approach. So you have this great title. How do you define complicated? Because I'm an Irishman. Every Irishman I ever met is complicated.
I love that. If when people go through the book, it's an interesting definition because we did a national research study on how to understand some of the complexities that people are navigating at work, and that was actually one of the questions. We asked the question, hey, how would you define a complicated person? We wanted to get an academic definition of the word complicated because someone that you may find complicated, I might find very easy to work with. Mm-hmm. And somebody I may find complicated, you're like, man, that's actually my favorite person to work with. And so we said, hey, let's let our participants kind of give us some cues on what it means to be complicated. One person wrote the word Leslie. And I said, whoa, who's Leslie? And what did she do to you? And then another person wrote Nate. And I was like, Nate? Who's Nate? Like, what's going on here? Another person said, I work at Target. Everybody's complicated. I said, whoa, we're all over the board. And so we did learn that complicated is in the eye of the beholder. And I simply define complicated as people who are hard to understand and hard to work with. Not because they're necessarily bad, but because they're human. Mm-hmm. And complicated people are essentially people with layers, experiences, blind spots, strengths, weaknesses. And spoiler alert, at the end of the day, well, that's all of us. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about labeling others as difficult, but it's about realizing complexity is a part of every relationship.
Well, I'm married to the love of my life for 35 years. We have 6 kids and a whole flock of grandkids and more coming. Here's one of the interesting parts. When I was in my first year of marriage, I'm flying around as a real estate agent, And my wife, who is a very, very quiet-spoken person, she put a sticker on the top of my mirror in my bathroom where I shave every morning, and it would say, "You are now looking at the problem." So I always say the hardest person I've ever had to manage is me.
No
How do you
question
start
about it,
with, and I really like the essence of the book is for you. And it starts with you kind of understanding yourself and your own complications.
Yes.
And then that's what you bring to the table. Obviously, someone's complicated who has different issues than I do.
Sure.
Someone who has the same hangups and challenges that I do, or processes information the same speed and way that I do. I mean, it's easy to get along with the ones that are like me.
Of course.
What is it? What is it? You know, you talk about the complication of yourself. How do you start there?
Well, I think it would be easy to wake up with the mantra that the world would be a better place if everybody else just changed. If everybody else just got their act together, if everybody else just voted the way that I voted, if everybody else just had my pace and my preferences and led meetings the way that I lead meetings and send pitches the way that I send pitches and did social media the way that I do social media. But that's just not the way to lead. It's just not the way to live. And I think that the moment that I can admit that I'm complicated, anytime I talk about this book, I always take a moment and say, hey, let me go first. Hi, my name is Ryan Leak, and I am complicated. My friends often tell me I have selective frugality. What that means is I will spare no expense for certain things, and I'm insanely cheap on other things. I will spend the money to stay at a 5-star resort anywhere in the world with my wife. Let's go.
Yeah.
But I'm not paying $10 a bottle for water in the room. No, we're going to Walmart down the street. We're going to get a 24-pack. And then when I go through the Four Seasons hotel lobby with Walmart water, my wife's like, why did we come here if we can't afford the water? I'm like, how do you think we can afford to be here? Okay. It's not that I'm bad. It's just that, I can be a little bit complicated, given the nature of the success I've had over the last couple of years. My calendar's gotten extremely complicated. And so I just realized that, man, I wrote this book honestly for my team to be able to work with me. And what I've learned is that the moment that I admit that I'm complicated, it changes the game. Because now, instead of approaching relationships with a fix them mindset, I'm starting from a place of humility. And I'm going, man, I'm realizing that somebody's giving me a pass for my personality. And here's what happens. People are giving us grace every single day and not telling us. Yeah. And what they've told themselves is, well, that's just Ryan. That's just Brian. That's just Bill. That's just Danny. That's we just write it off to that's just their personality. And it's not like they tell us. It's not like, hey, just so you know, I'm giving you grace for this little idiosyncrasy that you consistently have, and you're always late, or you don't punctuate all the time exactly the way that you should, But I think it's just whenever we start with the fact that, maybe somebody's giving me a pass today. Well, then it's going to be a whole lot easier to extend grace when you realize you're not the easiest to work with either. And so I think self-awareness is the foundation for empathy. Yeah. And when I know that I've got blind spots, I actually become more patient with yours.
One of my favorite stories in the scriptures is the parable of the man who owed a giant debt and was supposed to go to the debtor's jail. And the judge forgave him the massive debt, and then he in turn sent to jail the man who owed him a small amount of money. And I think all the time, I forget all the time that, because we all do. We all think we're perfect. We know we're not, but we all think like, no, I'm right. And we never think in terms of somebody's extending grace to me or someone's giving me a break today. And that's why if we did think about it, I think if we started the day, I'll be honest with you, I start the day, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves a wretch like me, And if I start that way, I tend to do good. Let me ask you this, Ryan, I'm just going to flip around on you. How did you get into this gig? I mean, how does Ryan Leak come to be? I mean, where'd you grow up? How did you end up into this line of work?
I actually started in church. My dad was a pastor. I noticed that he had such an impact on our community and in the city on Sundays. And I thought, man, what if I could do this on Mondays?
And you grew up in Dallas?
No, I actually grew up outside of Chicago in a city called Rockford, Illinois.
Oh, I've been to Rockford.
You've been to Rockford?
Of course,
Okay.
man. I've done 4,000 seminars. I've been to Rockford and done a
there we
seminar
go.
right there in the
There we go.
university.
That's right. So I grew up with like a heart for ministry, but a mind for business. And so I went to a Bible school and got a business degree and didn't really know what to do with that. But
What school did you go to?
graduated. So I went to a school called North Central University in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I met some incredible friends there. And my first job was actually a headhunting job for churches. So I was working for a business that served churches and it allowed me to just kind of travel the country and just see how some different organizations work and learn culture and some HR systems and whatnot. And then I noticed that one of my friends had this teaching pastor job. He was the teaching pastor at 3 churches. And so he did 15 Sundays at 3 churches, and then he took off the other 7. That was all he did. I was like, I want that gig. Like, that sounds awesome. And long story short, I ended up being a teaching pastor at 5 different mega churches around the United States of America, which allowed me to speak to about 50,000 people every single month. And what began to happen is people in those audiences would say, hey, man, I just went to our like leadership convention with like 10,000 people in an arena. He said, hey, I think your message on Sunday was better than what I just heard in the arena. Like, hey, can I pitch you to my company to come speak, or would you come talk to our team or our leaders? And I just said, sure. And the very first one I did was in San Francisco, speaking to a credit union. And I did an hour on kindness. Yeah, I just talked about just the power of kindness. And I said, hey, I know you've been taught, it's a dog-eat-dog world and it's survival of the fittest, but I think kindness can take you further than, trying to just push someone else off of the ladder as you try to climb the ladder of success. And a woman stood up after and she said, hey, I don't have a question. And I just want to say thank you. She said, I went to a very competitive college. I grew up in a volatile, violent home. And yes, I do believe it is a dog-eat-dog world. She says, but if I'm honest, I don't like the person I've become.
Wow.
And today you gave me a new way to be human. So no questions today. I just wanted to say thank you. And so I started to realize as a person of faith, I said, wait a minute. You've got all these people who have this like strong faith and they believe that like Jesus is the hope of the world. And like you get so much joy from that, so much fulfillment. But yet when they go to work, they feel like they have to hide it. Well, you're going to spend most of your life at work. And that might be depressing for some people, but it actually changed the way that I started communicating the gospel. So when I would talk about forgiveness, I would say, not forgive your dad, I would say forgive your boss. Because, well, it was just way more relatable. That's who they're spending their time with most days. They're not spending most of their time with their dad. They're spending most of their time with a boss or a colleague, and sometimes they'll take that bitterness to the next job. And so I just started using a whole lot more work examples in just how I teach the scripture and share my faith. And we'll just try to equip people to say, hey, I think if you act like a Christian at work, you'd be the best employee they have.
Yeah.
And so I just started talking a little bit different, and man, things just kind of took off, The people from all over the world began to reach out to me, and we just tried to steward the opportunities that we're given as best as we can through capturing them on video. I had a video business out of college as well, and so I'm pretty anal when it comes to video and whatnot. And so yeah, over the past couple of years, it's just gone well. So interestingly enough, the very first time I spoke for a Fortune 100 company, they say, hey, we're looking at all of your books. And I've got Chasing Failure, which is this big story about the MBA that I share all the time. And then there's this other book called Unoffendable that's like not even in print anymore. And it's a book on forgiveness. And they said, hey, could you talk to us about this unoffendable stuff? I say, I don't think y'all want that. that's a book on forgiveness. And they go, I think that's the biggest need we have in our organization.
Wow.
I said, really? And then even at the end of the book of How to Work with Complicated People, I tell a story of how Delta asked me to come talk on forgiveness. They're just like, do you realize how much bitterness like impacts our work and what we do every single day? And I say, well, hey, I can tell you how I can let go of bitterness. Maybe you've got some other plans, but man, it's so that's kind of how I got into this. Yeah, into
and
this
it's
line
exploded,
of work.
and it's amazing. It's interesting. It reminded me of a story. So, for 14 years, Wells Fargo was our sponsor, and they were a huge sponsor. They invested a ton of money and resources and people and connection. We had a fantastic partnership. And, as some businesses do, I mean, Wells Fargo did amazing work, whether it be the great earthquake in San Francisco and all these things. Yeah. They just had been a stalwart. They didn't get involved in all the mortgage crisis back in the mid-2000s. So they'd been the high standard. And then somewhere along the line, they made a sloppy decision on a sales comp plan. And they started doing this goofy stuff with small accounts. And boy, they made very little money on it, but they destroyed their good name for a while. And they were up in front of Congress and whatever else. So you'll like this story, because I'm having to do a keynote speech to the 900 leaders at Wells Fargo the day their boss is in front of Congress getting ripped by Elizabeth Warren, which, by the way, had massive consequences for the company. Wow. And you'll like this, because they say, we want you to speak for an hour. Now, I've done hundreds of events on their behalf. And then I go, we've gone long. Can you do 50 minutes? We've gone long. Can you cut it back to 40? We've gone long. By the time I go to speak, they go, you got 7 minutes. So I go, okay, that's all I need. Sure. And I went out on stage and I said, how many of you like personal growth and development books? And they all raised their hands. I said, how many read like management and leadership books? Raise their hand. I said, how many of you would read a book by a person who founded not one, but 2 companies, not in the Fortune 100, in the Fortune 15? So one man founded 2 companies that over 100 years ago, and both of those companies are in the top 15 companies in the United States. Worldwide also. I said, how many of you would be interested in listening to that guy's book? Everybody raised their hand. And I go, the guy's name was Henry Wells. And he founded Wells Fargo and he founded American Express. And I had been in a Wells Fargo branch the day before. And I'd taken a photograph, and it was in the corner of the branch. And this is the whole speech. They paid me $100,000 for 7 minutes, and I had one slide. You're liking that part, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I go, it was off the wall of Wells Fargo. And Henry Wells, who formed American Express and Wells Fargo, said, I can sum up my entire business philosophy in one word. And I asked 900 leaders at Wells Fargo, what was the word? And it was crickets. And I made it really awkward. I kept asking them. And I said, if you guys knew this word, no one would be in Congress today. And I said, the word was courtesy. And I said, Henry Wells summed up his entire business philosophy in one word. And it's just, all of us do this. I've done it in my business. We take our eyes off the principle. We take our eyes off the motivation of why we do things. And then you end up making some poor decisions, and then you get the consequences. And the world we live in today is harsh, and they had harsh principles. I've no doubt that message on kindness, the message on forgiveness, these principles, which established the world for the past 7,000 years, are the truth. And when they're delivered with grace, because you don't stuff it up people's throats, you are you're a good Monday to Saturday guy. Yeah. And you deliver this stuff. And it's fantastic, and you write that way. You talked about in the book about expectations and how it plays in with complicated people. One of the jokes is the way to have a happy marriage is to tell your wife to have low expectations. But how do you ultimately work with complicated people when expectations are involved?
I often, in my travels, I learned that a lot of people's challenges weren't product problems. They weren't process problems. They were people problems. And they kept, they would complain about a specific person, not a department. It would be a specific person that worked in a department. And they kept using this phrase, I can't believe that they would say that. I can't believe that they would write that. I can't believe they hit reply all. I can't believe they would say that in front of my boss. I can't believe. And then one day I was just like, hey, why don't you start believing them? Like, what were you expecting? You've been working with this person for like 5 years. Like, you know them by this point. Like, you keep letting complicated people catch you off guard, but you should actually be expecting complicated. You should walk through the door going, okay, I know this person has attitude. So when I have this meeting today, I should actually be expecting it, because if I expected it, it's not that I'm lowering my bar for you. It means I'm raising the bar for myself, because I'm now going to say, hey, I'm going to actually prepare for this person's attitude. I'm going to prepare for their sarcastic remarks. I'm going to prepare for them to reply with a passive aggressive comment. So now I'm not surrendering my emotional stability to somebody else's actions. And so I think expectations are everything. In fact, most conflict isn't about what actually happened. It's about the gap between what we expected and what we experienced. So if you expect someone to read your mind, you are guaranteed to be disappointed in life, in work, in marriage, in parenting, you name it. Yeah. So I just think having clear expectations, it creates clarity. And I think clarity really creates healthier relationships.
No,
ambiguity is what makes things complicated.
My bride is African American, and I like to laugh all the time. We're a black and white couple in more ways than one. And she has a hugely high standard Olympic athlete, just a tremendous, prayer warrior type woman. She's an amazing human being, but she sees things in black and white terms. And I can't believe and she won't ever criticize people or anything like that, but she has high expectations all the time. Yeah. And I think this whole concept of you don't change your standard, you actually need to expect more of yourself. And again, it seems to go back to that grace. It seems to go back to that, not to a lowering of my standards, but actually a raising of my practice is really what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's so much can happen when you're navigating complexity in the workforce with some of these relationships where it's like everyone always, I don't know if you've ever noticed this. If you ask somebody that's having a conflict between one another, you ask them the question, so what happened? They are super clear on their part and what they said. And then I said, da, 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 and da, 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 and they go on. And then you go, so how'd they respond? They're like, they were like, it's fine. You're like, so you spoke for 20 minutes and they just said, it's fine. Like, I'm pretty sure that wasn't their response.
Right.
It's just like, you can kind of overinflate your contribution and really criticize the other person's. And so I think that the heart of this book is about controlling what you can control. It's about you growing as a person. It doesn't mean that every single time that you employ these strategies that the conversation is going to go well. We talk a lot about difficult conversations in the book and different phrases you can use. And they're not magic words, but it definitely helps you grow if you use them.
Yeah.
That's for
they're
sure.
Magic words. They are magic words. I've read the book. They're magic words. It's helpful.
That's awesome.
Look, I have a couple 100 employees, man, and I have to manage all the different styles. I also have 50% of my staff that works from home. Yeah. Or out of state. So one of the things that's happened in a post-COVID world, and again, I'm a little longer in the tooth, you're fresher faced. So this is more of your norm. For people like myself, it's still hard to fathom, right?
Right.
But one of the things I've noticed in companies I deal with and in my own organization is collaboration is not as easy as it used to be. Yeah. And so now you take complicated people. We're going to have meetings via Zoom, texts, emails, and eventually calls, and then Zoom calls or Teams. In your book, you talk about 4 elements of healthy collaboration. I think this is, I think it's undersold in America how important collaboration is, and I think your perspective on it's pretty fresh. I'd like to have you talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, in the book, we break it down into 4 elements of healthy collaboration. The first thing is what we've been talking about a little bit already is the self-awareness piece, and that's knowing how you make other people feel, what that experience is like on the other side of you. You never want to think you're bringing something to the table that the rest of the team actually doesn't believe you bring to the table, or perhaps you used to bring it. You used to have fresh vision, but if you still keep bringing what you think is fresh vision for 5 years in a row, it now becomes old vision. And so now you feel like, man, I'm the visionary. It's like, well, you used to be. And so, but now that's irrelevant, and we live in a completely different space now. You think about the digital transformation that's happened around the world in AI, and you're not even up to date on those things. And so, so I think self-awareness is very important to know, like, hey, what it is that I bring to the team, and what's the vibe that I create for the team. The second thing I think is just clarity. I love asking team members that follow really magnanimous leaders. Do you know what a touchdown looks like for you?
Yeah.
Do you know what a win is?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I work here. I make 6 figures. But I don't actually know what the win is. I know we sell stuff.
Yep.
I know I work at the bank. I know I work for Chick-fil-A. I work for whoever, but
or as an entrepreneur, what we end up doing is you get so caught up in the business, you get so caught up in the monetary, you get so caught up in the details and chasing the staff. Yeah. It's very easy to forget why you got in the business and like who you serve and what's the real compelling, like tuning fork, inspirational part of why you do what you do. It's just, it gets pushed to the background.
Absolutely. And you can get lost in that, especially when you do what you and I do. It's like you're being pulled on by so many different kinds of groups,
right.
So many different kinds of people. You can kind of lose sight of, wait, who are my people? Who's our core audience and who are we serving every single day? So I think clarity's huge for collaboration. The third piece of that is just trust. I can't tell you, we do 120 events a year. We ask all of our clients the same thing, hey, well, what are the biggest challenges your people are having right now? And, change is at the top of the list for most organizations. And we just recently did a research study on change and how different people are navigating it. And one of the questions we asked was, how you feel about how leadership is navigating change and explaining change. And they said, man, this was the overwhelming cry of our participants. They said, if our leader would just be honest with us.
Yep.
If they would just not hold all of their cards close to the chest and stop giving us PR releases that ChatGPT wrote for you anyways.
Oh, jeez.
Just talk to us.
Yep.
It's like if there's trust, dude, I'll run through a wall for you. I know it's hard.
Right.
But if you're like beating around the bush with me, it's like, well, you don't trust me enough, and so that's gonna be hard to collaborate. Mm-hmm. And the last piece of collaboration that I think is huge is it's just feedback, giving it, receiving it, and creating a safe space for it.
Yep. Yeah, I think feedback's the breakfast of champions, and like I say, a lot of people are afraid of it, terrified of it. There's a lot of bluster in leadership that's masked as insecurity, but self-awareness is the key. Clarity, it's kind to be clear, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then if you're clear, there's a chance, if you're consistent, to build that trust, and then you get a little feedback, and you got something special. I kind of want to land the plane here a little bit. One of the things, and again, there's so much here, and I love your style of speaking. By the way, you're very entertaining. I like the word edutainment. Right, you got a little style. I knew your dad was a preacher. I mean, it was obvious in watching the clips. I go, this guy's been raised in the church, because you got the style where it matters, but you got a whole bunch of substance where it counts.
Sure.
But 5 things to work on regarding a disagreement. We live in a disagreeable world, and I really think this. I actually think. There's a glut right now of the YouTube channels, the social media. It's the mainstream media has lost its hold, and there's a runway, and it's entertaining stuff. But I think people are going to rebound very, very soon in the near future to, I just want to get on with life. Sure. There's a lot of disagreements out there. You have 5 things to remember about disagreements. I'd love you to cover. I just think it's so valuable. Yeah.
So one of them comes from my friend John Maxwell. He says, disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect.
Right.
Like, just because we don't see eye to eye on things doesn't mean I have to name call. I think that's important. I think number 2, focusing on the issue, not the person. Sometimes it gets personal, and we kind of cross that line, and just going, man, no. Even in the book I say, fight factually. Like, hey, here are some of the facts. Here's some of the research that we've done, and without bringing my personal vendetta into the conversation, it's just like, man, this is what, these are the facts. Here's the emails. Here are the phone calls. Here's what we've been noticing.
I call it the ramp up. People ramp up.
Yeah.
Because the issue is like, Yeah, and sometimes I'm not as sure of the issue as I should be because I didn't get the feedback. I didn't do the earlier collaboration. And so now people porcupine up, right?
For sure.
And the issue is, what are we talking about here?
That's right. Yeah, and that's so funny. Like sometimes you're in one of these disagreements, you're like, what are we even fighting about right now?
Right.
I'm confused. The third thing is I think sometimes we can speak, especially when it's a disagreement, we can speak in an accusatory tone.
Right.
And so I like to say, ask more questions than you make statements. Mm-hmm. Questions like, hey, I could be wrong, but it seems like our customers are asking us for something different than what we're delivering them. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're seeing? Mm. So now I'm presenting my thoughts with, I'm sharing a statement, but I'm ending it with a question and inviting you into a conversation. Mm-hmm. Not just accusing you of saying, hey, you've missed the mark with our customers. The fourth thing I think is important is you're not trying to win the disagreement. Mm-hmm. The goal is to understand. The goal isn't to win. And if the goal is winning, sometimes you'll win at all costs and you'll actually lose the relationship in the process. And so that leads to the fifth thing. I think keep the relationship more valuable than just being right. I think when you go, hey, what's the most important thing here is that this person feels like they are a part of the team and that we're moving forward is more important than me going, nope, I'm the leader and I was right and you're wrong. What that is just pure ego, and that doesn't help you or them.
Well, I'm going to say this, speaking out of school here, I've interviewed a lot of people. Sometimes we do a pretty good job here at researching the people we have on and the books they have and so on and so forth. And a lot of times I seem to know the content better than the author who wrote the book. And I'm like, hey, I love the fact, you effortlessly, you live this stuff, you believe this stuff. It's great principles that are ancient, passed down into language that's relevant. I think your dad would be very proud of the work you're doing. And
Thank you, man.
We're proud of our association, fired up to have you at our peak. And excited for people to get their hands on this book. It's comprehensive. I'd say it's a good read, but it's like a textbook on how to go about this. It's really
that's great.
Full of how-tos. It's great stuff in there. Ryan, I always I'm sure you've done a million podcasts, and so I have my own little 5 questions I like to ask everybody.
Let's go.
So whether it's Magic Johnson or you, it's everybody. It just gives us a little flavor behind the scenes. Sure. So here we go. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Rick Warren told me something that I'll never forget. He said, Ryan, I'm really excited for all the success that you have, but your success is not good for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, red carpets, VIP suites, steak dinners, standing ovations, lights, sound, music, fog.
Yep.
He said, your family can't compete with that. And he said, you weren't made to be worshiped. Only one man could handle that.
Yeah.
He said, so you have to have something in your life that grounds you. And he said, so when you go home, make sure you mow your own lawn and change your kids' diapers. And I've got turf in my backyard, so I can't mow my own lawn. But I'm crazy on the mop game. So when I come home, I mop my own floors. My wife's like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm actually coming home.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you get 3 standing ovations a week, you might have gotten 3 more standing ovations than the average person gets in their life.
Yeah, well, for 20-some years, I did an event called Mastermind, and my family would sit in the front row, and I would go, yep, this is just like when I come home. The smoke machine fires up, and the family all stands up and applauds, as opposed to, it's trash day, son. Look, it's crucial. The speaking business has far more casualties than it has successes. Wow. And so that's words to live by. And I just think this, people come to me all the time, you've changed my life. And I go, I didn't change your life. When the mechanic chooses to use a tool to fix a wrench or to fix a screw loose, people don't come back and thank the wrench. They thank the mechanic. So I think you're onto something there. That's great wisdom, and you're wise beyond your years, and that's probably why you're prospering the way you are. What one talent or gift do you wish you possessed that you currently don't?
I wish I could cook at a high level, or I wish I could cut hair. I wish I could cut my own hair because,
nice.
I got to keep a fade. You can ask your wife about that.
Looks tight.
But I got to, I wish I could do it myself.
Because that's the frugality piece coming in again.
Oh, yeah. Come on. That's right. No question. No question about it.
Hey, look, the experience at the barbershop, you're picking up content. You probably had more than one good line you've picked up there, and you're greasing the brother's palm. So, sometimes it's okay to lay a little cheese down there. All right. What's the book that's been most instrumental in your life?
Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets by Andy Stanley. Mm-hmm. It's a great book.
Yeah. Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. Great leadership book. Yeah. Yep. Last, what movie, if it's on, you're scrolling, you got to stop and take a peek? What's the one you watch over and over again?
Dark Knight Rises, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War. I'm a superhero movie guy. Honestly, if any of them are on, I'm watching.
It's all good. Yeah, I have a house full of those people, and I enjoy them all, but I've watched them more than I would care to. So yes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Last but not least, what does the good life mean to Ryan Leake?
I think the good life means where you have truly woken up every single day, moving towards the potential God gave you. That's a good life. Yeah. The reason I pinch myself every single day is I feel like every single day I get an opportunity to do what I feel like I was put on the planet to do, which is to make an impact in somebody else's life. I think that more than anything is the good life.
Well, I have a tapestry in my office right down the hall here, and it's a quote from Saint Irenaeus of Lyon, and it says, "The glory of God is the human person fully alive." Wow. And I think, well done. I'm excited. I was a guy, by the way, who was formed by people who had a deep faith principle, but great methodology of bringing those principles to the marketplace. Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Earl Nightingale. Those were my guys. And Og Mandino, if you've ever read Og, the greatest salesman in the world. And then there's been, then what happened is we had a whole season of where the principle-based guys got older and older, and it became all about, hooks and technique and this and that and the other. And so what I'm excited about, as the guy who's been around the block a few times, I'm seeing more and more fresh faces that are back to principle-based communication, and then packaging in a way that's fun, entertaining, and then with it. And you would be right at the front of that parade. So I'm very excited about the future. Very excited. There's been a gap where it was a bit goofy, but I'm telling you, it's coming on strong. And I've had the privilege of meeting many people like yourself. And look, keep on keeping on. Keep mopping your own floor. Keep taking care of your bride and those two fabulous kids. And we are so excited to have you at our Peak Experience. The book is called How to Work with Complicated People. And this is fantastic stuff. I recommend it. It's a book on collaboration. It's a book on self-awareness. And it's full of technique, which very few books are anymore. So you are wise beyond your years, sir, and we are so honored to have you here today and thrilled to have you in Kapalua next May. I look forward to meeting your bride and the kids and splashing in the pool.
Yeah, I love it.
That's great. Well, let me leave this podcast with the phrase my mother said on the podcast: for the last 9 years, the Lord have mercy on her. She's gone home to heaven. I'll say it in her honor. May the roads rise up to meet you, and may the wind always be at your back. May the rain fall soft upon your fields, and the sunshine warm upon your face. And until we meet again, I hope you all know that God has us all in the hollow of his hand. We'll see you next time.